I'm Tyler Austin from Gungnir Strategic. Thank you so much for watching. This video is going to be a short excerpt from a longer conversation I had with Rob over at Dice Show Tactical. In that conversation, we talked about all sorts of things, ranging from just general training stuff to CQB to rifles and all sorts of other little topics. And this video is a short conversation from that longer conversation. If you enjoy my content, definitely be sure to check out Rob over at Dice Show Tactical. He's also the same guy who ran the Gunfather Milsim channel, if you're familiar with that. He's a great guy, longtime SWAT guy, so he has a lot of knowledge and information to share. So if you enjoy my content, I'm sure you would enjoy his content as well, so definitely be sure to check out his channel, Dice Show Tactical. With that being said, I hope you enjoy this video.
So something else you actually want to talk about here was bridging the gap, which we've kind of slightly talked about here, but we can dive more in depth on it, is bridging the gap between training and reality. Well, what are some of the ways that you utilize for not only your SWAT team and everyone else that you train to help bridge that gap between, well, training and reality?
Well, training is idealistic and reality is very practical. So there's a lot of stuff that people do in training or discuss in training or they think is important in training. And then in reality, it just kind of gets thrown out of the window because practicality is king.
Yeah.
Okay. Stuff like right now, we have really cold weather. And a lot of really cool tactical shit takes a backseat to the fact that I have to operate in this cold weather environment. And I got to wear these gloves that are less than ideal.
Yeah.
Or bring an extra set of mittens or, wear layers or whatever. It's just, or maybe this is something I would usually sit out on, but now, holy shit, it's cold. We can't afford for this to go 6 hours. We got to finish this in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That is always a tough one, the reality versus training. Because I think sometimes we train for the gunfight that we think is going to happen, or that we want to happen, or that we see on TV, right? We train for the 1,000-round gunfight.
Or the scenario where you think your training will work the best. It's kind of like a biased selection, if you will.
Well, I mean,
a scenario, let's just call it.
So this gets into like my rifle school or the way I teach carbine, because lots of people teach it. Reloads are sexy. Reloads are cool. Everybody likes that cool reload on Instagram, where you get that really shit hot, mag flip, the mag, camera, right?
The quick head.
Right. But statistically, from a law enforcement standpoint, how many law enforcement shootings go to a necessary reload? I'm not saying the shooting is over and you top it off. I'm saying I am still engaged in the gunfight, and now I need to reload to continue that gunfight.
It's rather rare.
It's extremely rare. You're in the only one I can think of, and I'm sure there's a couple more, is the LA bank robbery back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, you are so far. I talk a lot about bell curves. You are so far out on the bell curve. You're well under, a tenth of a percent. You're way out there.
Yeah.
Does that mean we don't train it? No. It means we keep it in its proper context. I don't think there's ever been a law enforcement gunfight where the speed of your reload decided whether or not you're going to survive. And I would argue in a military context, having never been in the military, but from what I've heard from other guys during podcasts and that too, it's like they've never been in a context where the speed of their reload was whether or not they lived or died.
Yeah.
It is just, but in training, it's a huge freaking deal, right?
Yeah. I remember a second and a half reload. That's like people drive to have that.
I know better, and I still do it.
Yeah.
I'll be training with everybody. The rest of the team's on the line. And I'll shoot, and I'll get my reload done a half second or a full second faster than most of the line, and I feel good about myself, even though I know it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's not relevant because most of those gunfights are 3 to 6 shots, real quick, and it's over. And then there's no reload. There's none of that. I really like focusing on immediate action drills, tap rack, because in a law enforcement context, if your department doesn't carry your rifle loaded, which we don't, we have a loaded magazine but an empty chamber.
Yeah.
So you take out that rifle out of your trunk and you always, tap rack, turn your optic on. But under stress, with other stuff going on, let's say you're going to a hot call, shooting, robbery, active killer, whatever, what is the chance of you forgetting to do that? because you're distracted and doing other things.
Pretty high.
Pretty freaking high.
Yeah.
It's definitely a hell of a lot higher than doing a reload in a law enforcement context. So I always stress with my students, I need you, if you have a click, to immediately tap rack and re-engage. That has to be like shit hot. If you can do that every time instantly, and yet your reload takes you 6 seconds, I don't care.
Yeah.
I would rather have that than someone who has a 1 second reload, but if they get a click, they stare at the gun because they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of skill sets between training and reality, the reality is I want you to be able to fix the problem when it doesn't go bang.
Yeah.
Whereas with training, you're like, well, we want you to have a shit hot reload, a shit hot transition, look cool, whatever. These things don't always stack up. Whereas, so the other one, the tap rack, immediate action drill, is practical, right? Whereas the reload is ideal.
It's interesting because I just saw a video. It was either today or yesterday. It was body cam, and there was an officer shooting. I don't know exactly what the context was, but a guy pulled a gun with a from his vehicle and shot at the officer. The officer got hit a few times and fell down to supine. And as the officer was engaging, his pistol malfunctioned, and he had tap rack to clear the malfunction while in supine and engage. The guy got out of his car, and he shot him. He mag dumped the guy, and the guy was dead. But he was having to clear malfunctions while supine. He also got hit.
Illinois.
It might have been. I don't know exactly where it was, but I just saw it either today or yesterday.
I remember the context. Oddly enough, I had a recruit that was in one of my previous classes who knew the officer. It was just a small world. And yeah, that one was, they did a gun buy and they sold the guy a gun. They knew for a fact there was a gun in the car, and they went up to the car and the guy wasn't showing his hands right. Or the guy, he was like sitting on the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Decatur, Illinois.
Okay.
And sure enough, the guy pulls out the gun and then shoots the guy. And real bad tactics leading up to it. Amazing recovery.
Yeah.
Because he really put in a lot of work. He ended up getting shot, I believe, in the arm.
Okay.
But great work. Yeah, that we review that crap all the time.
But it's like one of those things where, like, for example, like everyone practices everything standing. Like whether it's dry practice, live fire stuff, it's like, well, have you ever done this stuff in other positions, like other even very common positions? Crouching, behind cover, prone, in this case, supine.
Yeah,
right?
I noticed that about your channel. You really stress doing everything in all the different positions, compromised positions, prone position, all the above. I was really impressed by that.
Moving is another big one. Standing still in a gunfight, unless you're behind cover, is generally a bad idea. Like, how many people practice drawing on the move? Like,
yeah.
I mean, watch any gunfight or any force-on-force simulation. People move when they're being shot at, when they're drawing their pistol. It happens 95% of the time. Mm-hmm. And if they don't move, it's generally bad, and they tend to get hit. I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. Like, people are trying to optimize things for the timer. It goes back to that speed thing, right? Well, if I can get my draw in under a second, then I'm good. When in reality, I'd rather you have a much more reliable draw stroke that you can do every single time, and you can do from a variety of different positions.
Or see the problem coming way down the road and start the gunfight with the gun in your hand.
Exactly that.
So with our guys, I've been, especially lately, really focusing on processing and putting them in a position to process things faster and better. People like to focus on how fast can I draw, how fast can I hit that, 6-inch plate at 7 yards from the draw, or how fast can I reload, how fast can I this, because it's, one, you can show it off on Instagram, and two, it shows you an actual number on the shot timer, right? How fast you process something is a lot bit harder to quantify,
Of course.
and what shows proficiency in that? How do we build that? Because when I'm running scenarios and I'm sitting there, okay, I know what's in the room. I'm watching my two guys come up and they're going to handle this room. They snap to that threshold. They get in a good position. The weapon's up. They're on their sights, the whole nine.
Yeah.
And then I see this 1,002, and then a decision is made usually. But it's that 1,002. Man, that took a lot of time. Compared to everything else in that equation, that's what took the most time. So my goal is to reduce that processing time. And how do we do that?
Yeah.
Because, we're not just shooting the thing with the gun. It's never that simple. We're not just shooting the cue like we do on the range.
Yeah.
We're looking at a living, breathing environment that's making decisions, and we're trying to articulate in a legal context so we don't go to prison that this thing represents an imminent threat of serious bodily harm or death to me or others.
Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated than just shoot the cue.
A lot more.
Right.
PID is actually very important, believe it or not.
Right, but how important is PID on a range?
Unless you're implementing it somehow into that training protocol.
Right,
not
it's
very
non-existent.
Yeah.
And it's and then there's the whole legal aspect of I can win the gunfight, but my actions were seen as illegal because I was not appropriate in my use of force, and now even though I've survived, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So how do I train my officers to do that better, to give them that edge? Because it's not enough just to say, wow, this kid's shit hot. He can hit the steel in a half second from the holster. That's amazing. Well, who cares?
Yeah.
If he shoots the wrong person.
Yeah. Shoot someone you shouldn't have shot.
Right. So I try to incorporate a lot of target discrimination, as in, hey, I'll put a bunch of shapes and colors on the targets and go, hey, your job is to shoot the blue circles.
Yeah.
And there's pieces of cover. I just did this one on Tuesday, and they're going to go through, and they're going to use the cover. They're going to do their 45, 90, 45, hitting their angles. And there's a whole mess of targets out there. And I just want you to find that blue circle. Not just blue circle. You know what I mean? And so they're looking and they're engaging the part of their brain that says, I have to do some sort of target discrimination. Yeah. Because that's the same part of their brain that's going to be activating when they're in a gunfight professionally, trying to make that discernment.
Yeah. Obviously, this has been done for a while, but having actual cardboard cutouts or spray paint, whatever, they'll have a target and it'll be like a gun or hands up or something like that. Another one that's been starting to be implemented a lot too, which I really like, and I'm looking to find a cheaper way to do it. But people in teams and schools have been using these things called blaze pods, and they're kind of like gimmicky agility training type thing, where they're these little circular pods, if you will, that light up certain colors, and you can set them on like a timer, and they can go through a certain program or whatever. But people have been using those a lot because you can put those on a target or down below the target, wherever, and you can have it set to multiple different colors. So let's say green means non-combatant, whatever,
right,
or compliant or something like that. Blue means non-compliant but not necessarily an imminent threat to you, and then red obviously means threat. So, and you can have it all sorts of different variations of that, of course. So you're looking and processing that, but you can also have it swap colors. So you can, for example, you might come break a 90 or whatever, see a target with a blue, start giving them orders, whatever your SOPs are for that, then suddenly it turns red. Now he's an imminent threat engage, right? So I think that's actually a really good way to do it. It's a very interesting way to do it. The blaze pods in particular, like a lot of companies are using now, they're super expensive. They're like $400 for 4 of them. It's silly. So
right.
I'm looking for a cheaper version of that because I want to start implementing that, because I think because not only do you get that immediate processing, but you get a reaction to it too. Because, like I said, like for example, like a blue non-compliant target can become red instantly, and you not only process that, but then obviously deal with it.
Right. Discernment is critical.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that on a flat range shooting paper targets. Not going to happen.
Yeah, not well. That's where force.
Right, but we can feel good about ourselves shooting on the flat range. We can feel like we're shit hot and get all our photos and everything. But the reality is, all right, are we really prepared? How important is my accuracy. How important is speed and accuracy as compared to my decision making? And how do I train that decision making? I was on a barricade the other night, some crazy guy with a gun, and I found a great sniper position, but it was 177 yards away. And 177 yards by a law enforcement sniper perspective is really far.
Because I believe the average SWAT sniper shot is, I believe, 70 yards, right?
60, but yeah,
60, okay.
More or less.
Yeah.
I always call eyeballs at 80 because it sounds cool, but yeah, it's realistically 60 yards.
Yeah.
So we're trying to hit the eyeball at 80, but I was at 177, and I remember thinking, man, this is kind of pushing. And I'm on a tripod, and I'm in the back of a vehicle, and it's cold and it's shitty, and I remember looking at my scope and seeing my crosshair. Oh, it's moving a little bit. I'm like, okay, I might give up about 2 inches on this one. That's my wiggle room because it's just not quite as tight as I would like. And then I saw my suspect because he came to the window unarmed at that time.
Yeah.
And this guy was 300 pounds, big as fuck. I mean, I said to myself, well, hell, on him, the 2 inches is not a event. So it's real world.
It's minute of beast at this point.
Right. All of a sudden, that 2 inches, oh, shit, that's a non-event. So I don't know. That story seemed more relevant when I started it.